The Indian Navy, Bhāratīya Nau Senā, is the naval branch of the Armed Forces of India. The President of India serves as the Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. The Chief of Naval Staff, usually a four-star officer in the rank of Admiral, commands the Navy. The Indian Navy is the fifth largest in the world. It played an important role in India's victory in the 1971 Indo-Pakistani War. The Indian Navy can trace its lineage back to the Honourable East India Company's Marine, which was founded in 1612 to protect British merchant shipping in the region. In 1757, the East India Company established its rule over much of the Indian subcontinent. But it wasn't until 1830 that the colonial navy became known as Her Majesty's Indian Navy. In 1858, East India Company rule gave way to the British Raj, which lasted until India became independent in 1947. When India became a republic in 1950, the Royal Indian Navy, as it had been named since 1934, was renamed to Indian Navy. The 17th-century Maratha Emperor Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is considered as the father of the Indian Navy. The primary objective of the Navy is to secure the nation's maritime borders. India also uses its Navy to enhance its international relations through joint exercises, port visits and humanitarian missions, including disaster relief. In recent years, the Indian Navy has undergone rapid modernization to replace its aging equipment, currently in service. This is often seen as part of India's drive to develop blue water capabilities and enhance its position in the Indian Ocean region. As of 2015, the Indian Navy has a strength of 58,350 personnel and a large operational fleet consisting of 2 aircraft carriers, 1 amphibious transport dock, 9 landing ship tanks, 10 destroyers, 14 frigates, 1 nuclear-powered attack submarine, 14 conventionally powered attack submarines, 25 corvettes, 7 mine countermeasure vessels, 47 patrol vessels, 4 fleet tankers and various other auxiliary vessels. History. Early maritime history. India has a maritime history dating back 5,600 years. The first tidal dock is estimated to have been built at Lothal around 2300 BC during the Indus Valley Civilization, near the present-day Mangrol harbour on the Gujarat coast. The Rig Veda, written around 1500 BC, credits Varuna with knowledge of the ocean routes and describes naval expeditions. There is reference to the side wings of a vessel called Plava, which gives stability to the ship under storm conditions. A compass, the Matsya Yantra, was used for navigation in the 4th and 5th century AD. The earliest known reference to an organization devoted to ships in ancient India is to the Mauryan Empire from the 4th century BCE. Emperor Chandragupta Maurya's Prime Minister Kautilya's Arthashastra devotes a full chapter on the State Department of Waterways under Navadyaksha. The term Navadevai Pantaragamanalm appears in this book in addition to appearing in the Sanskrit text Baudayana Dharmasastra as the interpretation of the term Samudra Samyanam. Sea lanes between India and neighbouring lands were the usual form of trade for many centuries, and are responsible for the widespread influence of Indian culture on other societies. Powerful navies included those of the Chola dynasty, Maurya Empire, Satavahana, Gupta Empire, Pala, Pandya, Vijayanagara Empire, Kalinga, Mughal and Maratha empires. Particularly the Chola dynasty had a powerful navy which conquered parts of maritime Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka in the 11th century during the reign of Raja Chola I. Rajendra Chola I and Kulodunga Chola I. The palace and the Cholas excelled in foreign trade and maritime activity, extending their influence overseas to China and Southeast Asia. The Maratha naval power dominated the military scene in India for 3 centuries. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the Maratha and Kerala fleets were expanded, and became the most powerful naval forces in the subcontinent, defeating European navies at various times. The PAL was a three-masted fighter with guns peeping on the broadsides. Kanhoji Angry and Kunjali Marikar, the naval chief of Samudhiri, were two notable naval chiefs of the period. 1612 Origins to independence. In 1612, the English East India Company established the East India Company's marine to protect its merchant shipping off the Gulf of Cambay and up the Narmada and Tapti rivers. Its first fighting ships in India were acquired on 5 September 1612. This force evolved into Her Majesty's Indian Navy in 1830, while most of India was under British rule. The force at this time had British officers and Indian sailors. The Navy saw action in the First Opium War of 1840 and in the Second Anglo-Burmese War in 1852. Sub-Lieutenant D.N. Mukherjee was the first Indian to be granted a commission as an engineer officer in 1928. In 1934, the Navy was renamed as the Royal Indian Navy. The onset of World War II led to an expansion in numbers of vessels and personnel. The Navy was actively involved in operations during the war around the world. Its sloops HMIS Sutlej and HMIS Jumna played a key role in Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily. It was heavily involved in operations around the Indian Ocean, including convoy escorts, mine-sweeping, supply, as well as supporting amphibious assaults. At the end of the war, the Navy underwent rapid, large-scale demobilization of vessels and personnel. In 1946, Indian sailors started the Royal Indian Navy Mutiny, a rebellion influenced by activities of Indian National Army and post-World War II political unrest in India on board ships and onshore establishments to protest discrimination against Indian officers and sailors by the British and the putting on trial of ex-Indian National Army soldiers and officers. A total of 78 ships, 20 shore establishments and 20,000 sailors were involved in the rebellion, which spread all over India. This rebellion failed as the rebels did not receive support from the political leaders. After the independence of India on 15 August 1947 and the ensuing partition, the RIN's depleted fleet of ships and remaining personnel were divided between the newly independent Union of India and Dominion of Pakistan. When India became a republic on 26 January 1950, the royal prefix was dropped and the name Indian Navy was officially adopted. The prefix on her ships was changed to Indian Naval Ship. Independence. To the end of the 20th century. During the early years following independence, the Navy still had many British officers who continued to serve with the Indian Navy. Vice Admiral Ram Das Khatri was the first Indian to assume office as the Chief of Staff of the Indian Navy on the 22nd of April 1958. The first engagement in action of the Indian Navy was against the Portuguese Navy during the liberation of Goa in 1961. Operation Vijay followed years of escalating tension due to Portuguese refusal to relinquish its colonies in India. On 21 November 1961, Portuguese troops fired on the passenger liner Sabarmati near Anjadeep Island, killing one person and injuring another. During Operation Vijay, the Indian Navy supported troop landings and provided fire support. INS Delhi sank one Portuguese patrol boat, while frigates INS Bitoir and INS Bees destroyed the Portuguese frigate NRP Afonso de Albuquerque. The 1962 Sino-Indian War was largely fought over the Himalayas and the Navy had only a defensive role in the war. Indian naval activity in the Indo-Pakistani War of 1965 largely involved coastal patrols. During the war, the Pakistani Navy attacked the Indian coastal city of Dwarka, although there were no military resources in the area. While this attack was insignificant, India deployed naval resources to patrol the coast and deter further bombardment. Following these wars in the 1960s, India resolved to strengthen the profile and capabilities of its armed forces. The dramatic change in the Indian Navy's capabilities and stance was emphatically demonstrated during the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971. Under the command of Admiral Sardar-e-Lal Mathradas Nanda, the Navy successfully enforced a naval blockade of western East Pakistan. Pakistan's lone long-range submarine PNS Ghazi was sunk following an attack by the destroyer Inds Rajput off the coast of Visakhapatnam around midnight of 3 to 4 December 1971. On 4 December, the Indian Navy successfully executed Operation Trident, a devastating attack on the Pakistan naval headquarters of Karachi that sank a minesweeper, a destroyer and an ammunition supply ship. The attack also irreparably damaged another destroyer and oil storage tanks at the Karachi port. To commemorate this, December 4th is celebrated as the Navy Day. This was followed by Operation Python on 8 December 1971, further deprecating the Pakistan Navy's capabilities. Indian frigate Inds Kukri, commanded by Captain M.N. Mullah, was sunk by the PNS Hangor, while Inds Kirpan was damaged on the west coast. In the Bay of Bengal, the aircraft carrier Inds Vikrant was deployed to successfully enforce the naval blockade on East Pakistan. Seahawk and the IL-SS aircraft from Inds Vikrant sank numerous gunboats and Pakistani merchant marine ships. To demonstrate its solidarity as an ally of Pakistan, the United States of America sent Task Force 74 centered around the aircraft carrier US Enterprise into the Bay of Bengal. In retaliation, Soviet Navy submarines trailed the American task force, which moved away from the Indian Ocean towards Southeast Asia to avert a confrontation. In the end, the Indian naval blockade of Pakistan choked off the supply of reinforcements to the Pakistani forces, which proved to be decisive in the overwhelming defeat of Pakistan. Since playing a decisive role in the victory, the Navy has been a deterrent force maintaining peace for India in a region of turmoil. In 1983, the Indian Navy planned for Operation Lal Dora to support the government of Mauritius against a feared coup. In 1986, in Operation Flowers Are Blooming, the Indian Navy averted an attempted coup in the Seychelles. In 1988, India launched Operation Cactus to successfully thwart a coup d'etat by PLOTE in the Maldives. Naval maritime reconnaissance aircraft detected the ship hijacked by PLOTE rebels. In Godavari, and Indian Marine Commandos recaptured the ship and arrested the rebels. During the 1999 Kargil War, the Western and Eastern fleets were deployed in the northern Arabian Sea. As a part of Operation Talwar, they safeguarded India's maritime assets from a potential Pakistani naval attack, as also deterred Pakistan from attempting to block India's sea trade routes. The Indian Navy's aviators flew sorties and marine commandos fought alongside Indian Army personnel in the Himalayas. 21st century onwards. In the 21st century, the Indian Navy has played an important role in maintaining peace for India on the maritime front. In spite of the state of ferment in its neighborhood, it has been deployed for humanitarian relief in times of natural disasters and crises across the globe, as well as to keep India's maritime trade routes free and open. The Indian Navy was a part of the Joint Forces exercises, Operation Parakram, during the 2001-2002 India-Pakistan standoff. More than a dozen warships were deployed to the northern Arabian Sea. In 2001, the Indian Navy took over operations to secure the Strait of Malacca, to relieve U.S. Navy resources for Operation Enduring Freedom. The Navy plays an important role in providing humanitarian relief in times of natural disasters, including floods, cyclones and tsunamis. In the aftermath of the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, The Indian Navy launched massive disaster relief operations to help affected Indian states, as well as Maldives, Sri Lanka and Indonesia. Over 27 ships, dozens of helicopters, at least 6 fixed-wing aircraft and over 5,000 personnel of the Navy were deployed in relief operations. These included Operation Madad in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, Operation Sea Waves in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Operation Castor in Maldives, Operation Rainbow in Sri Lanka and Operation Gambir in Indonesia. This was one of the largest and fastest force mobilizations that the Indian Navy has undertaken. Indian naval rescue vessels and teams reached neighboring countries less than 12 hours from the time that the tsunami hit. Lessons from the response led to decision to enhance amphibious force capabilities, including the acquisition of landing platform docks such as the INS Jalashwa, as well as smaller amphibious vessels. During the 2006 Israel-Lebanon conflict, the Indian Navy launched Operation Sukoon to evacuate 2,286 Indian nationals and expatriates, besides 436 Sri Lankan and 69 Nepali citizens, from war-torn Lebanon. In 2006, Indian naval doctors served for 102 days on board USNS Mercy to conduct about medical camps in Philippines, Bangladesh, Indonesia and East Timor. In 2007, Indian Navy supported relief operations for the survivors of Cyclone Sidr in Bangladesh. In 2008, Indian naval vessels were the first to launch international relief operations for victims of Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar. In 2011, Indian Navy launched Operation Safe Homecoming and rescued Indian nationals from war-torn Libya. During the 2015 crisis in Yemen, the Indian Navy was part of Operation Rahat and rescued 3,074 individuals, out of which 1,291 were foreign nationals. In October 1999, a coordinated effort by the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guard led to the rescue of pirated Japanese cargo ship MV Alondra Rainbow. In 2008, the Navy deployed INS Tabor and INS Mysore into the Gulf of Aden to combat piracy in Somalia. Tabor prevented numerous piracy attempts, and escorted hundreds of ships safely through the pirate-infested waters. The Navy also undertook anti-piracy patrols near the Seychelles, upon that country's request. In 2011, the Navy launched Operation Island Watch to deter piracy attempts by Somali pirates off the Lakshadweep archipelago. This operation has had numerous successes in preventing pirate attacks. On 14 August 2013, the submarine INS Sindhurakshak sank in Bombay dockyard due to explosions aboard. On 16 November 2013, the then Defense Minister A.K. Antony commissioned a modified Kiev-class aircraft carrier INS Vikramaditya in Severodvinsk in northern Russia. Currently the principal roles of Indian Navy are, in conjunction with other armed forces of the Union, act to deter or defeat any threats or aggression against the territory, people or maritime interests of India, both in war and peace. Project influence in India's maritime area of interest, to further the nation's political, economic and security objectives. In cooperation with the Indian Coast Guard, ensure good order and stability in India's maritime zones of responsibility. Provide maritime assistance in India's maritime neighbourhood.